Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take huge concepts and, well, boil them down into something really useful, something you can maybe even use today. And today we're tackling a really big one in self-discovery. This idea that basically all our emotional pain, all that suffering, it funnels down into just 5 core wounds. We're diving into Lise Bourbeau's synthesis, specifically from her book, Heal Your Wounds and Find Your True Self. Our goal here, to give you some quick, solid insight into why maybe you keep attracting the same kinds of difficult situations or even the same type of partner. And crucially, what are these protective personalities, these masks we wear, actually hiding?
Yeah, and it's good to ground this first. Bourbeau's work, it didn't just appear out of nowhere, right? It's really a synthesis, building on decades of pretty foundational research. She takes Sigmund Freud's breakthroughs, the discovery of the subconscious,
Right.
and weaves it together with Wilhelm Reich's work. Reich was the one who physically showed that our neuroses, our emotional stuff, it doesn't just mess with our minds, it actually profoundly reshapes our physical bodies.
Okay, so we're starting with that solid, almost clinical idea that the mind and body are deeply connected in suffering.
Exactly. And that thread was carried on by people like John C. Pierikos with core energetics. They really emphasized that, true healing has to look at the body, the emotions, and the thoughts all together. But here's where Bourbeau takes that psychoanalytic base and makes a pretty radical leap. The core premise is that your soul, or your inner self, your inner God, whatever term resonates, it actually chooses the specific environment, the specific parents you need in this life
Oh, hang on.
to help you finally resolve experiences you couldn't accept in past lives.
That's a huge jump right there.
Oh, yeah.
We went from Freud and body mechanics to the soul choosing parents. How does the source kind of bridge that gap? It feels quite metaphysical.
Well, it suggests that trauma itself isn't the main issue. The real key is the self-judgment. So the problem isn't necessarily the painful thing that happened, but our own lack of self-acceptance about it. Feeling guilty or ashamed or judging ourselves for feeling that way. That's what the soul apparently comes back to work on.
Okay. Let's unpack that a bit. The creation of our suffering. The soul wants to learn, but then the source says our ego gets in the way.
Right. So when we go through something difficult without accepting it, when we judge ourselves or feel that shame, the ego kind of latches on to that pain. And because the ego's primary drive is to protect us from pain or perceived pain, it paradoxically keeps attracting the very same situations, the same kinds of people.
To make us face it again.
Exactly, to force the lesson, basically, until we can finally reach a place of acceptance about the experience itself.
But that sounds, well, counterproductive, doesn't it? If the ego is about protection, why force us back into the fire?
It's like a kind of twisted loyalty, perhaps. The ego and our rigid beliefs around the pain, they stop us from learning the easy way. It tries to block out the feelings or beliefs that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, in that refusal, it accidentally locks us into this cycle. We have to keep facing the same pain until we stop judging ourselves for having felt it or gone through it.
And this whole cycle, this is what creates those protective masks, typically in childhood, through these 4 stages.
Yes, exactly. Stage 1 is apparently this pure joy of just being your true self, usually pretty brief. Stage 2 is the pain, the realization that you're not allowed to be that true self because it somehow upsets the adults around you.
Right, it makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that discomfort leads to stage 3.
Mm-hmm.
The rage, the rebellion. Think of the classic terrible twos or teenage angst.
Mm-hmm.
Those are often these crises playing out.
And if that anger, that rebellion, isn't resolved in a healthy way.
Then the child moves into stage 4, resignation. To cope with that pain from stage 2, the child basically crafts a new personality, a mask. It's designed to be what others seem to want, to minimize conflict and, protect themselves.
Okay, so these masks are built to hide the wound we haven't accepted or healed. So let's list them out. The 5 big ones, appearing chronologically in life, and the mask that protects each one.
Okay, the wounds are rejection,
Mm-hmm.
abandonment, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice.
And the masks they create are often quite recognizable, aren't they? So rejection leads to the mask of withdrawal. Makes sense. Abandonment creates dependence. Humiliation results in masochism, but more the emotional or mental kind. Betrayal triggers the mask of control. And finally, injustice leads to rigidity.
Yeah, and a really key insight from this research is how the body becomes this sort of silent storyteller for the trauma. The moment those masks form, they start subtly reshaping us physically, our morphology, even our posture, our behavior. The body, it always finds a way to tell us what needs healing.
Okay, let's get into some of those tells. The source has some really surprising examples. We might spot these masks just by listening to someone's voice.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great indicator. Someone wearing the withdrawal mask, for example,
Mhm.
often speaks with a kind of feeble or dull voice. It's like they're trying to take up less space, even sonically. Dependents, on the other hand, might use a more childlike or even a plaintive tone.
Yeah.
It's often subconsciously designed to elicit attention or support.
Okay.
And then you have those with the mask of rigidity. They tend to speak more mechanically, maybe with noticeable restraint, very focused on being precise and well-controlled.
You can see the defenses in posture too, can't you?
Definitely. A withdrawer often sort of disappears into their chair. You might notice them tucking their feet into their legs, almost literally disconnecting from the ground, getting ready to check out mentally.
Right. Coming away.
Whereas dependents will naturally kind of lounge or maybe lean heavily on the armrest or even on another person if they're close. They're physically seeking that external support. And the rigid person, they're all about maintaining control. So they often sit up perfectly straight, maybe press their legs tightly together. If they cross their arms or legs, the book suggests it's often specifically to block feeling what's actually going on inside them emotionally.
Wow. And the detail that really stuck with me was the car test. That your choice of car could actually signal which mask is dominant.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The person with the withdrawer mask tends to go for dark-colored cars, things that just blend in.
Yeah.
The ultimate low-profile choice.
Unassuming.
Exactly. But the controller. They want to be seen, respected. They often buy powerful, high-status cars that get noticed.
Okay.
And the rigid person often prefers classic high-performance cars. Why? Because they're driven by getting quality and value for their money. Performance, longevity, that matters more than just flash. Okay, so now we need to dig into something really fascinating. The hidden fear. Bourbeau points out this deep irony where people wearing a mask often have absolutely no idea what their own greatest fear is, but the people around them, they usually see it crystal clear.
Ah, the ultimate blind spot. Self-deception in action. So the withdrawer, their biggest fear is actually panic.
Yes. They spend their life kind of preemptively disappearing just before things get overwhelming enough to trigger panic. So they rarely consciously feel it. But Bourbeau suggests their eyes, that nervous energy, often gives away that deep avoidance.
Okay. And the dependent, their fear is solitude.
Deeply. They might frantically fill their time when they're alone, always needing background noise like the TV or constantly being on the phone. It's this terror of feeling truly alone, even if they're physically in a room full of people.
Right. Now this one's really interesting. The masochist. The person who seems to pile on constraints and obligations. Their greatest fear is freedom. That seems backwards.
It does, doesn't it? They create all these burdens and duties so they genuinely don't feel free, yet others often perceive them as incredibly free because they tend to just do things without waiting for permission. The very system they built to feel safe and needed actually traps them and prevents the freedom they secretly crave, but also fear.
Wow. Okay. And the rigid person, their deepest fear is coldness.
Yeah. They try so hard to be warm, fair, harmonious, but often their partners or those closest to them experience this kind of dry, stiff attitude, especially if the rigid person feels unjustly accused of something. The mask of control inadvertently creates the very emotional distance they fear.
That's powerful stuff. The research also points to some patterns, doesn't it, about which parent the wound tends to be lived out with.
It does observe some tendencies, yes. Rejection and injustice, for instance, are often lived out primarily with a parent of the same sex,
Okay.
while abandonment and betrayal tend to correlate more with a parent of the opposite sex.
And humiliation.
Humiliation is often linked to the parent, usually the mother historically, but whichever parent was primarily responsible for attending to those very vulnerable physical needs like eating habits, bathing, toilet training, cleanliness, those moments where shame or judgment around the body could first creep in.
Right, where you're most exposed as a child.
Exactly.
And here's the really counterintuitive point the source makes. It's often the parent we actually liked best as a teenager that we have the most healing work to do with. The idea is we tend to hold a deeper grudge or have more unresolved stuff with the person we loved and trusted the most deeply back then.
It makes a certain kind of emotional sense, doesn't it? The potential for hurt is greater where the bond was strongest.
Yeah. So, okay, the big question. How do we actually heal these wounds? Where do we even start?
Well, the absolute first step, according to Bourbeau, has to be recognition and acceptance. You have to see the wound, see the mask, and crucially, accept it. And this is key. View the creation of that mask not as some kind of personal failing, but as a necessary, even heroic act of love towards yourself. It was about survival back then.
Right, so stop trying to just change ourselves and instead focus on healing through self-acceptance. But that involves facing a pretty tough truth, doesn't it? That whatever we accuse others of doing to us,
Mm.
we're usually doing it to ourselves too.
Absolutely, that's a core part of it. If you constantly feel abandoned, the work involves seeing how you abandon your own important projects or neglect your own needs. If you're caught in the wound of injustice, you have to look at how incredibly demanding you are of yourself, how you dismiss your limits, how you only focus on your mistakes. That's how you keep the wound alive.
Hmm. And that must be incredibly difficult for someone wearing, say, the controller or rigid mask, right?
How does someone whose entire identity is built on self-control and aiming for perfection suddenly allow themselves to be imperfect?
It's terrifying, absolutely. But healing means consciously reversing those original four stages of wound creation. It culminates in reaching that fourth stage again, becoming ourselves once more, but this time consciously. It requires actively choosing to stop believing that the mask is essential for your survival now.
And the signs that healing is actually happening, they must be pretty significant. Oh, they're incredibly clear and often life-altering. For someone healing the dependent mask linked to abandonment, suddenly they start feeling genuinely okay, even good when they're alone. Life feels less like a constant drama.
Hmm.
They start taking on projects even if they don't have cheerleaders.
That's huge.
Yeah. And if you're healing the rigid mask of injustice, you start allowing yourself to be less perfect. You can make a mistake without that crushing self-criticism kicking in. Maybe you can even show vulnerability, show real sensitivity, perhaps even cry in front of someone else without that deep fear of completely losing control.
And the payoff seems massive. All that energy that was tied up in constantly maintaining the mask, it gets freed up.
Exactly. And what's revealed are the true strengths that were buried under that defensive system all along.
Ah, so the mask wasn't just hiding a wound, it was suppressing potential.
Precisely. The mask of withdrawal, for instance, often hides people with incredible stamina, real efficiency, and a powerful ability to work deeply and effectively alone. The mask of control, that often conceals genuine leadership qualities, the ability to make quick, effective decisions, to delegate well, and a capacity for truly high performance when it's not driven by fear.
So the mask wasn't a weakness itself, more like a pressure cooker holding all this potential energy captive.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
So this whole deep dive, it really offers an amazing kind of map, doesn't it? Psychologically, maybe even spiritually, for self-discovery. And the core distinction seems to be we are not our wounds. We are the being, the consciousness that is experiencing them. And when our body brings one of these patterns to our attention, the source suggests it's actually our inner self, using the physical body as a messenger
Mm.
to tell us that we actually possess everything we need right now to face whatever it is we're afraid of seeing or feeling.
And the creation of these masks, this act of hiding our true selves, Bourbeau describes it as perhaps the greatest betrayal of all.
Which is?
Having forgotten that we are, in essence, already whole, already capable, already complete. Like forgetting our own inner divinity, if you will.
Wow. And that fundamental need to connect, even if it gets twisted by these wounds, that's
Yeah.
at the root of so much. There's that quote from the Swedish poet Hjalmar Soderberg that Bourbeau includes. It really captures this drive, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's powerful. Recite it.
We all want to be loved, failing that, to be admired, failing that, to be feared, failing that, to be hated and despised. We want to awaken an emotion in others, whatever it may be. The soul trembles in front of nothingness and seeks contact at all costs.
Seeks contact at all costs. That really hits home, doesn't it? Which kind of leaves you, the listener, with this final thought to maybe chew on. If the soul, as Soderbergh puts it, seeks connection at absolutely any cost, what is your true self willing to risk losing? Maybe the approval, maybe the control, maybe even the familiar comfort of isolation in order to finally, truly just be.